It was a bright, bustling morning when the busy intersection near the town square came to a sudden halt. Cars honked and drivers cursed under their breath, their patience thinning as they impatiently awaited the cause of the traffic jam. At the center of it all was a dog, limping slowly, its fur matted with blood, its body trembling with pain. But it wasn't just its injuries that held up the cars, it was the dog's fierce determination, blocking the road with every ounce of strength it had left. Luna, a golden retriever who had once lived in a quiet neighborhood not far from the town, was no stranger to the warmth of human love. She had been adopted by the Wilson family as a puppy, her vibrant energy filling their home with joy. But today, something was terribly wrong. Luna, normally the picture of joy, was clearly hurt, her movements slow and deliberate, as if each step caused her immense pain. Yet, despite everything, she wouldn't move from the middle of the road. She wouldn't leave the spot she had chosen. As the traffic piled up, a few concerned drivers got out of their cars, trying to approach the injured animal with caution. But Luna didn't let them get close. She stood her ground, her body tense, her eyes filled with a protective intensity. Something was hidden beneath the pain she was enduring, something important, something it seemed the dog wasn't willing to leave unguarded. The Wilsons, who had been frantically searching for Luna ever since she went missing the night before, were in a panic. Her absence had been sudden, leaving the family heartbroken, unable to understand why their beloved companion had run away. They never imagined she would be found on this busy road, bloodied and hurt, but still holding strong. Luna's family rushed toward the scene, their hearts pounding in their chests. But as they came closer, it became clear that Luna was more than just a scared dog who had gotten into trouble. She was protecting something in the middle of the road that no one had noticed yet. The sight that would leave everyone speechless was just about to unfold. The tension in the air was palpable as Luna stood her ground in the middle of the road. Her breaths were labored, her injured paw trembling as she shifted her weight to keep from collapsing. Despite her obvious pain, she refused to move. Her eyes darted between the approaching strangers and the spot she guarded so fiercely. A soft whimper escaped her throat, a sound so laden with emotion that even the impatient drivers began to quiet down, their curiosity overtaking their frustration. Behind Luna, just inches from her protective stance, lay a small, crumpled bundle, a kitten, barely a few weeks old. Its tiny body was limp, but its chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Luna had found the kitten on the side of the road, injured and unable to move. She had stayed with it through the night, shielding it from the cold and predators, and now, even as her own strength faded, she refused to abandon the fragile life she had chosen to protect. The drivers who had stepped out to investigate quickly realized what was happening. A woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "It's protecting the kitten," she whispered, her voice trembling. Another man crouched cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Easy, girl," he said softly, his heart aching at the sight of Luna's battered body and unwavering resolve. But Luna growled low, her message clear: stay back. The situation was becoming dire. Luna's injuries were worsening, her movements slower and more strained. The kitten, barely clinging to life, needed urgent medical attention. But Luna's fear and confusion made it impossible for anyone to get close enough to help. Meanwhile, the Wilson family was closing in. They had received a frantic call from a passerby who recognized Luna from a missing dog poster. As they neared the scene, their hearts sank at the sight of their beloved dog, her once golden coat now streaked with dirt and blood. But what caught their attention most was her unwavering focus on the tiny kitten she had placed herself in harm's way to protect. The crowd murmured anxiously, debating what to do. Time was running out. Luna was exhausted, the kitten was fading fast, and the family was still a few steps away from reuniting with their brave dog. But would she trust them to help? The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Luna's body trembled as she stood, her injured paw barely able to hold her weight. The kitten let out a weak mewl, its tiny cry a plea for help that pierced through the tense silence. Luna's ears perked up at the sound, and she turned her head to nudge the kitten gently with her nose, as if to reassure it. Despite the growing crowd and the looming danger of the traffic around her, Luna refused to abandon her post. The Wilson family, now just steps away, stopped in their tracks as they saw the full scene unfold. "Is that a kitten?" Mr. Wilson whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Tears welled up in Mrs. Wilson's eyes as she saw the extent of Luna's injuries. Their once vibrant and joyful companion now looked fragile and weary, yet her protective instincts were stronger than ever. Luna's journey to this moment had been anything but easy. The night before, she had heard the faint cries of the kitten while out in the yard. It was a sound that pulled at her heartstrings, compelling her to follow it. Luna had slipped through the open gate and tracked the sound across the fields, her paws crunching on frost-covered grass under the cold night sky. When she finally found the tiny creature near the edge of the road, it was barely alive, shivering from the chill and too weak to move. Luna had stayed by the kitten's side, using her body to keep it warm. But as the hours wore on, hunger gnawed at her stomach and exhaustion began to take its toll. She had tried to carry the kitten back home, but her strength had failed her after a few steps. So she had chosen to stay, protecting the kitten from passing cars and the biting wind. Now, as the morning sun rose, the situation had become even more dire. The kitten was barely breathing, and Luna's body was growing weaker by the second. She swayed on her feet, her vision blurring, but she refused to lie down. Each car that edged closer brought a fresh wave of danger, and her growls became more desperate. The Wilsons knew they had to act fast. "Luna," Mr. Wilson called, his voice filled with both relief and urgency. But Luna barely acknowledged him, her focus entirely on the kitten. She had spent the entire night fighting for its survival, and she wasn't about to let anyone, human or otherwise, endanger it now. The family's struggle paralleled Luna's. They had searched all night, their hearts heavy with worry, scouring the neighborhood and nearby woods. Mrs. Wilson had blamed herself for leaving the gate open, while their son, Ethan, had cried himself to sleep, clutching Luna's favorite toy. When the call came about Luna's sighting, they had dropped everything and rushed to the scene, but seeing her in such a state filled them with both relief and heartbreak. Meanwhile, the crowd around Luna grew. Some people tried to help, but Luna's growls kept them at bay. Others simply stood back, unsure of what to do. One driver called animal control, fearing the situation might escalate. The kitten let out another faint cry, and Luna turned her attention back to it, licking its head gently. It was clear she was trying to comfort the tiny creature, even as her own strength waned. Mr. Wilson took a cautious step forward, his voice calm and soothing. "It's okay, Luna. We're here now. You've done so well." Luna's ears flicked at the sound of his voice, a faint glimmer of recognition in her eyes. But the protective instinct still held strong. She didn't trust anyone to come near the kitten, not even her family. Mrs. Wilson knelt beside her husband, holding out her hand. "Luna, sweetheart, we're here to help. Let us help you." Her voice cracked with emotion, and tears streamed down her face. The sight of their loyal companion, battered and bleeding yet refusing to back down, broke something inside her. The tension in the air was thick. The kitten's life hung by a thread, and Luna's resolve seemed unbreakable. It was a standoff born of love and fear, and every second felt like an eternity. Could they convince Luna to trust them in time to save both her and the tiny life she had risked everything to protect? The answer lay in the next few moments as man and dog stood united by the unspoken bond that had always connected them. The air was thick with tension as the Wilson family inched closer, their hearts pounding in unison with the urgency of the moment. Luna's injured body trembled with the effort of staying upright, but she remained firmly planted between the kitten and the growing crowd. Her breathing was shallow, her strength fading, but her determination burned as fiercely as ever. The kitten let out another weak cry, its tiny chest rising and falling unevenly. Luna turned her head to nuzzle it gently, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and love. She couldn't let anything happen to the fragile life she had worked so hard to protect. But her vision was growing blurry, and her legs threatened to give way. "Luna, please," Mr. Wilson pleaded, his voice breaking. He dropped to his knees, extending a trembling hand. "We're here to help. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Luna's ears twitched, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed as if she recognized the voice of her beloved owner. But her instincts were at war with her trust. She had spent the entire night fending off danger, her body and mind locked in survival mode. Letting someone approach the kitten felt like a risk she couldn't take, even if it meant defying the people she loved most. A car honked loudly from the line of traffic, the sudden noise jolting Luna and sending a fresh wave of panic through the crowd. Luna growled low in her throat, her trembling body leaning protectively over the kitten. The noise startled the kitten as well, and its faint cries became more frantic. The little creature was running out of time. Mrs. Wilson stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Luna, look at me," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. She held out a piece of Luna's favorite blanket, the one she had slept on every night since she was a puppy. The familiar scent reached Luna's nose, and her growls faltered. Her wide, frightened eyes locked onto Mrs. Wilson's, searching for a sign. "You're so brave, Luna," Mrs. Wilson continued, her voice shaking with emotion. "You've done everything you could. But now it's our turn. Please, let us help." Luna hesitated, her body swaying under the weight of exhaustion. The kitten let out another faint cry, and Luna turned to look at it, her heart torn between her protective instincts and the trust she had always placed in her family. At that moment, Ethan, clutching Luna's favorite toy, stepped forward. His small voice broke through the noise. "Luna, we love you. Please come home." The sound of Ethan's voice pierced through Luna's fear. Her trembling legs buckled, and she sank to the ground, her body curling protectively around the kitten one last time. She let out a soft whimper, her head resting on the pavement, as if surrendering to the family she had always trusted. Mr. Wilson seized the opportunity, rushing forward with the blanket. He gently scooped up the kitten, his hands trembling as he cradled the fragile life. Mrs. Wilson knelt beside Luna, stroking her dirt-matted fur and whispering words of reassurance. "It's okay, Luna. You're safe now. We've got you." As Luna's eyes fluttered closed, the Wilsons worked quickly to load her and the kitten into their car. The crowd parted, some wiping away tears as they watched the family speed away, their precious cargo heading towards safety. The stakes had never been higher, and Luna had made the ultimate decision to trust her family when it mattered most. But as the car sped toward the nearest veterinary clinic, one question remained: would they make it in time to save both lives? The answer lay just moments ahead, where love, resilience, and hope hung delicately in the balance. The veterinary clinic was a whirlwind of motion as the Wilsons burst through the doors, carrying Luna and the tiny kitten. "We need help, please. They're both hurt," Mr. Wilson called out, his voice frantic. A team of vets and technicians quickly sprang into action, carefully taking Luna and the kitten from the family's arms. Luna let out a soft whimper as she was placed on the examination table, her tired eyes flickering open to catch a glimpse of her family. The kitten, now wrapped in a warm towel, gave a faint mew that seemed to ignite a spark of hope in Luna. She tried to lift her head, but was gently eased back down by a kind vet. "She's exhausted, but she's a fighter," the vet said reassuringly. "We'll do everything we can." The family huddled together in the waiting room, their hearts heavy with worry. Minutes felt like hours as they clung to the hope that their brave dog and the fragile kitten she had protected would pull through. Ethan clutched Luna's toy tightly, whispering a quiet prayer. Finally, the door opened, and the vet walked in with a smile. "They're going to be okay," she said, her words like a soothing balm to the family's frayed nerves. "Luna's injuries are manageable, and she's already responding to treatment. As for the kitten, it's weak but stable. They'll both need rest and care, but they're out of danger." Tears of relief streamed down Mrs. Wilson's face as she hugged Ethan tightly. Luna was wheeled out on a soft blanket, her tail giving a weak but unmistakable wag when she saw her family. The kitten was cradled in a technician's arms, its tiny body nestled safely in the warmth of the towel. In that moment, the Wilsons knew their bond with Luna had grown even deeper. She had risked everything to save a life, and now it was their turn to repay her courage with unwavering love and care. Together, they headed home, their hearts full of gratitude and joy. A week later, Luna lay comfortably on her favorite blanket in the Wilsons' living room, her fur clean and her wounds healing well. Her eyes, once clouded with exhaustion and pain, now sparkled with contentment. Resting beside her was the tiny kitten, whom the family had named Shadow, for the way it had clung to Luna for safety. Shadow had quickly adapted to its new home, curling up next to Luna whenever it could and purring softly in gratitude. Despite her injuries, Luna had taken on the role of a gentle protector, licking Shadow's tiny head and nudging it toward its food bowl when it hesitated. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching a picture of Luna and Shadow together. "She's a hero, isn't she, Mom?" he said, glancing up. "She is," Mrs. Wilson replied with a smile, running her hand along Luna's back. "She reminded us how brave and selfless animals can be. And she showed us that every life, no matter how small, is worth fighting for." The family had even shared Luna's story online, hoping to inspire others. The response had been overwhelming, with hundreds of people commenting on how Luna's bravery had moved them to tears. Some had shared stories of their own pets, while others had promised to adopt animals in need. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the room in warm hues, Luna stretched and gave a soft sigh, her tail wagging as she glanced at her family. Shadow nestled against her, letting out a tiny purr of contentment. The Wilsons sat together, watching the peaceful scene and feeling their hearts swell with love and gratitude. Luna and Shadow's story is a testament to the power of compassion and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. If you're moved by their journey, consider adopting a pet or supporting your local animal shelter. Every animal deserves a chance at love, safety, and a happy home, just like Luna and Shadow found with the Wilsons. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of bravery and kindness, whether from a dog, a kitten, or a human, can create the most profound ripple effects.